The number one thing that holds many people back from going after their dreams is fear. Yep. If left unchecked, our fear can keep us locked up inside our own mental prison. The trouble is, confronting your fears isn't easy and it's going to be uncomfortable, unfortunately. While staying in your comfort zone might seem safe, fear can actually lead to living a life of frustration and depression. But if you truly want to live your best life, you need to stop letting fear rule it. In today's video, we'll look at how you can stop letting fear control your life. For the best strategies and tips on finally living the life of your dreams with the least resistance through making the right tweaks to your mindset and daily habits, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get my latest uploads every week. So, today we'll look at three main ways to start halting fear in its tracks, or at least walk through that fear and find your breakthrough on the other side. So, let's start with exploring the causes of your fears. If you want to stand any chance of getting over your fear, you're going to need to know its root cause. Ifa speaks a little about fear in Ogunda Mehi. The main message of this Odu speaks about overcoming obstacles and seeking for the truth by getting or dealing with the root cause. Ifa advises when life or a situation seems unclear, it's best to go into hermit mode and do some soul searching. When this Odu comes down, I know that heart and mind are out of alignment because the negative thoughts are running rampant. There's inner conflict with Osamei in the west, and they need to get under control with Ikamei in the north, sitting in the north. So you'd want to write down all of your fears because somewhere down the line, you're lacking adequate information about the situation or knowledge, or there's a conflict between your wants and your needs and what those are. And this is seen in the Odu Oturupomehi that sits in the south in this particular Odu cycle. So after you've written down the fears associated with a particular situation, then you will want to circle the fears that are most palpable. Once you have identified what your main fears are, start to think of ways you can prevent them from taking you off your equilibrium. Ifa also advises to retrace your steps and do things in chronological order and learn to handle situations effectively and objectively. So we want to stick with facts. We want to understand and dissect where that certain fear came from. Okay? So you're going to need to change the way that you think, speak, and act. You want to look at the situation objectively, like I said, because you can't see the truth if you're holding on to emotional garbage, Ifa says. And that's mainly discussed in the Odu of Oturupomehi in the South. She's the bearer, the bearer, the bearer. So, what are you holding on to that is no longer relevant or is no longer valid, whether it's a belief or how a situation panned out, that's causing you to react in a certain way if a similar situation is popping up, right? So once we get down to this and we dissect what's going on, how did it happen? We go back to Lucy Progreso. We go back to the genesis of the situation. Then we can understand, okay, this situation stemmed from here. This is what happened. Who were the main characters in that situation? How did they react, or were they the cause of that? And how you can get over that and step into your own power. This is how this will put you in a position of power and help you to control your state of mind in an unpleasant situation. And in this sense, this is what Ikame's main essence is. It's about control. Yes, it speaks about people who have just been hired at a job, and you're training them, or they're brand new to that job, and then they're acting like they're the boss, right? Ikame is a very authoritative energy to deal with. So to step into your own power, Ifa says you're surrounded by darkness. So in order to understand what's kind of going on, you need to remain silent. You need to go hermit mode, as in Ogundamehi, and we need to understand, okay, let me face myself. Let me stay quiet and go into that darkness, Osamehi, in the west. That's where the sun sets. That's where the stress of the day and the heat of the stress cannot get to you, because you shut down in a sense, right? So you can get your bearings. Then you can speak the truth, because communication issue here happens. And communication is not only about what you're saying and how it's coming across, it's also the nonverbal communication also. That is a form of communication. Not saying anything, not standing up for yourself, is also a form of communication to someone else. And it can be very dangerous to someone who has not so nice, let me put it that way, not so nice qualities about themselves. So you always want to put yourself in a power position. And if we deal with ikamehi in that sense, and to stand in your power to bring light into a situation, because you have all this crap being thrown at you, it is your words of wisdom that brings light. So you're always responsible for what you say and how you say it. You're not responsible for how that person takes it, in a sense. Okay, we're not talking about speaking down to someone, or being sarcastic. I'm not speaking about that. I'm speaking in a healthy manner, and you're clearly and concisely explaining a situation to someone. You have to bring light to it, and that's how you bring light out of that darkness that sits in that odu in the northern hemisphere, Lucy Progreso, which in a mundane sense speaks about what you're speaking, what you're bringing out into the universe and the atmosphere, how you're thinking, and how you're also perceiving that situation, right? And it also speaks about the upper hemisphere of your body, because your body is dissected into a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere, right? But we won't get into that. We'll keep moving, okay? So, I also want you to always remember that you won't be able to prevent your fears from coming true. However, most of our fears are simply a defense mechanism. That's why it's so important to take the time out to go back to the past. That is Owen Meji, the reversed head, to dissect it, to gain understanding in order to move forward. We don't want to get stuck in the past through our resentments and those not so nice emotions. We want to look back at the past to dissect it, to gain understanding and to gain that breakthrough. Okay? So by facing our fears, we often find that it wasn't as bad as we thought it would be. Why? Because this time you're much wiser. This time you're much stronger. If you have dealt with the emotions that accompanied that situation at that time. Okay? So once you have an idea of what's causing your fear, you can then look at ways to combat it. Number two, you want to practice mindfulness. And I have a kind of different type of sense, think out of the box type of person that I am. Um, Practicing mindfulness is totally different, and I'll start to explain it here. Fear tends to generate a lot of osogbo, EB, or energy that is very resistant, energy that is very hot, okay? And it kind of snowballs and sometimes ricochets, but it kind of snowballs into the self fulfilling prophecies, you know, and it creates what Ifa calls the Elenini, Now, in some Lukumi circles, and I am no expert, okay, not even close, okay. Um, Elenini is deified, is an actual, I don't want to say orisha because it brings about misfortune and it gets ugly. When we are reading these sacred odus, it gets ugly. You're like, what? Oh no. Horror stories don't have nothing on Elenini. Okay? So to bring it back down, because my duty, my knack for spiritual wisdom is to break it down. I don't like abstract forms of communication. You have to how would I say that? Bring it to me, ancestors. Lucy Progreso. You have to master the basics, understand it in order to apply it to your life. There's no use of gaining spiritual knowledge and you don't know how to apply it to your life. If a situation comes up, you should be able to draw upon that spiritual knowledge and then spit out the results. So that's the type of person that I am. And this is the knowledge that I'm sharing with you as I also continue to learn, revise, revamp, reevaluate as I go. Okay. So moving forward, I don't want you to think, well, Dalme, you said this was this, and this way. Odus are constantly evolving depending on the child of the Odu and their experience and their perspective in their growth journey. Ifa is all about studying nature, gaining more knowledge, becoming a better self. So you may experience, let's say we were talking about Ogunda earlier, in one sense, and then at the same time I'm in a different part of the world, or I could be your next door neighbor and I experience that same odu, that same energy signature in a completely different way, right? Where your ogunamehi experience may be basically internal. So I always look to the west first when I read an odu. To me, the first odu, and I know the Santaria and Ifa police, please don't come for me. Oh. This is my experience through Ifa. So I'm put that disclaimer out there. For me, the first Odu is Oye Kumehi, then Ejiope. Okay, it is the woman, the holy mothers, that start first, and then she created everything else. Out of darkness becomes light. How can you know light if you don't know darkness? That's just the way I resonate with it. Anyway, moving on. That's for another video, right? I don't want to get too mouthy and wordy. But if a person is experiencing ogunamehi internally, right? There's issues with the temper. When you look at Odu, we're mistrustful, we're kind of weary, we're kind of withdrawn, in a Monday sense. I would look to learn more and understand how you're experiencing ogunamehi and look to the west first and say, okay, Osamehi is in the west. So there's a whirlwind here. Okay. The tornado has struck, honey. So we need to make a radical change. Who's in the north? Ika. Oh, hell no. So they have all this crap being thrown at them. And how is it manifesting also in the south? Is that they're bearing all this energy, all this emotion also. Because if I is saying in Oturupamehi that you have to get rid of that emotional garbage that you're holding on to, right? So I know all those energies combined have also manifested into they're being emotionally drained. Why? Because if I says in Oturupamehi that you don't have the courage to disconnect from your environment. And who's in your environment? People. So these people are literally draining you and making your anger issues manifest. The internal struggle is going on. Now you're feeling mistrustful. And if it's in Ogunda, there could be arguments, right? Everything's up in the air with Osame. You can't pin anything down. You're like, what's going on? And people are just talking crazy out of their mouth with Ikamei. All that crap's coming, and now it's bearing down on you. Not to mention that now you're dealing with finances in the mundane world, rent, da 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 da, da yada yada yada. All that is bearing down on you. right? And it's causing, and if you hold on to all this and you keep exposing yourselves to these types of environments, what do they produce? Isms. They create the elinini. They create the self-fulfilling prophecies. So now your mindset's out of whack. Now you're speaking to yourself, whether out loud in your head, now you're in a very dark place, Lucy Pogreso. Your darkness, you've allowed the darkness around you to consume you now. So that little bit of light, if I'm not mistaken, is in the throat, I think. I'll look back and I'll put it in the comment, the description box below. You're allowing all that darkness that's surrounded to consume that light, right? So you have to be very careful and nip it in the bud. And how does if I say nip it in the bud? By choosing your words carefully and by speaking the truth. Because O'Shea Torah says, speak the truth, tell the facts. Those who speak the truth will have the help of the deities. Now that you've spoken your truth, the divine has kicked in. That ire has kicked in. That luz has kicked in. And Orumila says in O'Shea Torah that the truth is the character of Olodumare. It is mighty power, surpassing all. It shall not fail or fall. So if they don't want to accept the truth, that's on them. That's not on you. But you spoke the truth and you walked away. We're going to agree to disagree at this moment. So the thing is, we don't want fear to fester too much, because if it festers too much, like I've said previously, it starts to grow and snowball and snowball and snowball. Okay. So another side note for those of you who are initiated into the spiritual path of Ifa and Lukumi, um, for more information on the Elinini, it can be found in the Odu Iwori Ogbe. Or the best thing to do is to go to your elders and do your own research. Okay, let's keep it moving. So, by practicing mindfulness, and I mean by practicing mindfulness, guarding your thoughts, your speech, and of those around you, because Ifa also speaks in Otura Mehi that be mindful of what you're listening to, be it music, social media. People call you to constantly complain, or they always got something to speak about, something to talk about someone. They always got the latest gossip and all that good stuff. You want to be mindful. Words manifest whether you are quote unquote spiritual or not. It can manifest quickly or it could take its time depending on the main energy and cycle and season that you're in life. Either way, it's going to manifest. That's why if I saying, hey, be careful around certain people who always got something nasty to say. When it's not you or somebody else, the energy that accompanies that word, Lucy Progreso, is negative and it will produce, it is energy. You are a vibration, right? And ancestors were just telling me that remember that the Bible says in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word, I think, and He made it manifest. Master Jesus says, aren't you, ye are gods? And Ifa says, those who master their emotions become gods in the flesh. So you have to be very mindful. This is not a joke. And in a sense, Ifa doesn't care if you're spiritual or religious, even though those are two completely different things. It doesn't really matter. It's going to manifest. It's simple physics, Lucy Progreso. Okay? So by practicing mindfulness, again, you want to guard your thoughts, your speech, and of those around you. It can also help bring a sense of calm into the mind. Oritutu, in order to face a situation objectively and not be so in your feelings. Because people can and will, if need be, to save face, to protect their ego, they can use your emotions against you. Okay? So, lowering your anxiety levels will in turn give your fears less control over you. And the thing is, again, we don't want fear to fester and to produce elenini and all those isms and all those self fulfilling prophecies. Okay. So when you are in a calmer state, you're going to feel a lot stronger and better able to face your fears. And also understand that you're not your energy in motions, aka emotions. It is energy in motion. So energies serve as a way to either evolve or destroy or to move. Okay? And also emotions serve as a signpost to mindsets and beliefs that need mending, releasing, or just revamping. Okay. So in the real world, you can start with exercises where you would picture yourself in that situation. Then come up with different solutions on how to best address that situation as if it were happening in the present moment. If need be, have a trusted friend to help you with this exercise. One second. There we go. Sorry about that. Another thing you could do is meditation and deep breathing exercises. Again, remember with Ogundamehi, we want time to ourselves to gather our thoughts and to revamp our energy. Okay. So these are great for calming anxiety and training the mind to stay steady and calm on command because you want to be able to command your calmness. You want to calm the storm within, Osamei, in order to understand, overcome the obstacles, because Ogunamehi speaks about that. The road is still open, Ifa says, but the energy kind of shifted to make it look like there's a blockage or your roads are closed or there's an issue when there really isn't, in fact. Okay. They also deliver a lot of great benefits for your mind and body because we always want our mind and heart to sync as one. If one goes off the rail or tilts a little bit, that's when we start to build resistance, confusion, all that good stuff. Okay. So, one tip is you could start with short guided meditations if you're a beginner, and you can find them free on YouTube. Okay, there's many resources out there for that. All right. Number three, we want to focus if need be. Now, if need be, this is not unnecessary or needed. If need be, you want to focus on the consequences of if you don't change. So if you're struggling to face your fears, focus on what will happen if you don't make the needed changes. That is, how will your life be a year from now if you don't do the inner work? Ifa says in Osamehi again. See, when I do a personal reading, again, let's say for the year, because people in us in the spiritual community, we have quarterly readings, we have monthly readings, and we have the big one, which is our major readings where we go to our elders or an elder of the same spiritual path or not to get a yearly spiritual reading. And you don't want to sit in front of that elder and their Mpungo or the Orisha is like, so you ain't gonna work on yourself, huh? You just gonna be burning these candles and doing the same thing. You ain't realize that your mindset ain't. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, that kind of thing. So my goal here is to make sure that we do the inner work alongside the spiritual work, where inner growth is also spiritual growth because we're evolving, so we don't have to come down here anymore. Cause I ain't gonna lie, they done made this a hot mess down here. Honey. They done made this a hot mess, and I'm no, no. So let me just do all the homework, And this is the school, hard knock schools of life. So let's just learn and evolve, so we don't have to come down here. Okay, spirituality doesn't only involve the rituals, the ebos, the adimuns, the candle burning. Personal growth is also part of that. And Ifa wants to stress that because I think it is in Ikame. He says the biggest ebo that you can do is to change the way that you speak, think, and act. Right? Okay. So if you're running away from taking that risk or making a solid change because of fear, Fear of failure, fear of what someone might say, fear of someone's opinion. Who cares? You doing you, right? It's because it's either going to require a level of responsibility that you don't want, or you don't want to look like a failure, like I just said, in the eyes of others. And that's a no no. Most likely, you'll be stuck feeling dissatisfied with your life and unable to move forward. You'll just keep going in circles. The reason you're here with me today is because you are already feeling fed up and wanting to make a change. So if you don't start facing your fears, you'll only start to feel more frustrated, resentful, and lost. So focusing on what will happen if you don't face your fear can provide you with the motivation you need to do it. The key here is to first look at the root cause of the fear. Remember in Ogundameji, Mehi, not Meji, Mehi, there we go, um, is to find the root cause, to divine, right? To overcome obstacles. And sometimes Lucy Progreso, Ifa speaks on in Ogunda Mehi, you got to deal with the devil, you got to dance with the devil, and you might not like that, but that's probably what you got to do in the meantime, right? Sometimes you got to dance with the devil. Ouch. It's necessary sometimes to get you from where you are to where you want to be. The key is to stay focused and not let them rattle you, because you already know they're AKA the devil. Okay? Right? Okay. So we want to first look at the root cause of that fear. What emotions does it conjure up? And what would be the worst case scenario if that did happen or manifest? Another alternative is to connect with others who have conquered those same fears, because there's nothing new under the sun, and we are all here to learn from each other's experiences to help us move forward in life. And that's why we also learn to from the Odus, the Patakis, and the Bible, the story of the Bible, um, and the wisdom that it brings through the different characters or whatnot, is because they have gone through certain experiences, and we're here to learn. So they've Lucy Progreso, they've left that blueprint for you. And your responsibility is to connect to the divine, to connect with your cleansed and purified, elevated ancestors in order to find the wisdom within those stories. And sometimes it's not just one spiritual path that fixes it all for everyone. Sometimes you can extract wisdom from several others, from the Quran, from the Buddhist, from the Hindu. It's all about your guides, your journey, and definitely Yori. Okay? So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. All right, so the main takeaways on today's topic. Number one, find the root cause of your fears. I know you've heard that 1,000 times, but I want to make sure you understand, okay? You got it, okay? Number two, be very mindful of your thoughts, your beliefs, and self talk at all times. Number three, realize what you'll lose if you don't overcome certain fears, right? Now, these are some of the best ways you can stop letting fears control your life. But this is not the end all be all. You can add your own. This is just a starting point to jumpstart and inspire you to do your own research and start doing the self reflection that's needed. Okay. So, only by recognizing and facing up to your fears can you truly get past them. Therefore, by working on your self improvement and boosting your self confidence, it can help you to be in a much better position to face whatever you feel is troubling you, or that tower moment, like in the tarot cards, right? Okay. So now that you've gotten some new tools under your belt, are you ready to apply what you just learned? I've created a free accompanying workbook in the description box below. And if you need more help, you know where you can find me at themoralcompass.com, where I'll provide more tips and tricks to help you on your journey. Also, If you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you a part of the family, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay blessed, my loves.